Missing school, even a little bit, leads to poor results at Leaving Cert and in employment. That's according to a study carried out by the ESRI, finding that missing 20 or more days a year can lead to a big drop in Leaving Cert points, and that missing even 1 to 3 days at age 13 can lead to worse outcomes. The study looked at 7,500 students who are now in their late 20s based on their school attendance when they were 13, so that's before the pandemic. School absences have risen significantly since COVID. Emer Smith is with us. She's a research professor at the ESRI. Emer, thank you very much for coming into us today. We'll get to the findings in a minute, but why did you carry out this study?
We're involved in a research programme with TUSLA Education Support Services because there's a lot of policy awareness about attendance issues and school absence having grown since the pandemic. So we're trying to unpack some of the processes at play, and this provides the first Irish evidence on the long-term impacts of school absence.
Most people won't be surprised at the finding that missing a lot of school will lead to poor results at the end of school. But missing 1 to 3 days at age 13, really?
It does have a small effect, but the largest effect is from missing more school. Chronic absence, which is 20 days or more over the school year. But the effect is sizable, about 80 Leaving Cert points, even when you take account of a lot of factors. But what surprises even more is we see the effects on well-being into the 20s at age 20 and 25. We see that young people who've been absent a lot from school, they're less satisfied with their lives, all else being equal. They're more likely to have depressive symptoms and high stress levels. But they also have weaker social ties. They feel a less sense of belonging and less sense of general trust in other people.
Yes, but that's the effect of chronic absence. I think what will alarm people is the effect of small absences. What did you find there?
We find there's kind of a linear relationship between the level of absence and the level of kind of underperformance. So even missing more than 10 days in a school year means you're less likely to go on to get a degree by the time you're 25. So the difference will be about 16 percentage points, which is large.
But 1 to 3 days at the age of 13?
Yes, I mean, it's not just a one-off. We can only capture absence at age 9 and 13, but we know from other data that if you're absent, it tends to be a pattern over time.
Now, you looked at Leaving Cert results, Leaving Cert points. Tell me about the other outcomes that you looked at.
We looked at whether young people would have a degree by the age of 25. We looked at their labour market outcomes. There we don't see as strong effects, but we do find a little bit more experience of unemployment and being out of the workforce for the group who'd been chronically absent, and slightly lower income levels. But we see much stronger effects on well-being.
You also that the class didn't have much impact and people weren't really able to compensate for those absences. Tell me more about that.
We do see a social gradient, so we see social differences in who's absent. So more disadvantaged groups are more likely to be absent. But if someone is absent, the effect is the same across social groups and for girls and boys. So it's not the case that the assumption that more advantaged families can make up for the difference by helping with homework or schoolwork or even paying for grinds. That's not emerging.
I know this study is based on people schooling over a decade ago, but we also know that missing school has been a bigger problem since COVID. What do you expect to be the results and the outcome for people who have missed a lot of school either during COVID or since then, whether it be because of anxiety, whether because they became less used to going to school, or the whole variety of reasons that have caused children to be at school less now than they were before COVID?
Well, we've seen a massive increase in the wake of the pandemic. So chronic absence, so missing 20 or more days, it's about a fifth of students at primary and second level. A fifth. So, the group affected, negatively is going to be larger. And some of that is being driven by socio-emotional difficulties. We're doing other research on this. So therefore, you might even expect that the effects to be somewhat worse.
Like what?
Well, like all of the things we've seen, we would expect it to kind of impact on well-being. We expect it to impact on education outcomes. And we all know the Leaving Cert in Ireland is a gateway to other things. It impacts on your life chances.
You said that this was the first study of its kind to look at the impact of missing school. Have we looked at what the effect of COVID and missing school has had on children since then?
We're trying to look at that. We have 2 cohorts of the Growing Up in Ireland data that we use for that, so we can look at kids 10 years apart. There was no shift over time in the 9-year-olds' absence, but the 13-year-olds, who were the ones who experienced the transition to secondary during the pandemic, they saw a real increase, and the increase was greater for those with socio-emotional difficulty and those who dislike school.
Emer, thank you very much for coming in to us. Emer Smith is a research professor at the ESRI.